Do you know Israel? Do you know her neighbors? Do you understand the history behind Israel and what is happening in the Middle East? Do you know the involvement and the promises of God and His sovereignty and purpose over what's happening in the Middle East? Do you understand the conflicts and their meaning and their purpose, their causes? Do you know the biblical prophecies that talk about how that issue is going to unfold? Do you understand the times we are living in? And are you playing ball in your court the proper way to align yourself with the right side of history as these things happen right before our eyes? What is your contribution? What is the place of the international community? What is the place of nations? What is the place? And what is the place of our religious inclinations? Join me. I invite you to follow me through this study in the clip that's right away. I'm going to start, and be patient and listening right to the end of it. You'll help to reach others if you subscribe, if you ring that bell, you click on that bell, you subscribe, you share to others so that this information can reach people far and wide and help them understand answers to these questions and more. Welcome. Welcome to this channel. My name is Pastor Elijah from Machakos in the Republic of Kenya. I would like to talk about a very contentious topic that has taken the world ransom over the days. It's quite an emotional and interesting subject about the happenings in the Middle East. As everyone knows, the Middle East has become a flashpoint of global attention and global conflicts, a focal point of all international relations, and every nation is aligned to a particular ideology concerning the Middle East, depending on its interests, sources of information, and influence from various quarters. However, as a man of God, my perspective heavily relies on the teachings of the Bible about the Middle East. For instance, there are several names that have been given to that place. You hear of names like Palestine, names like the Middle East, names like West Asia, the Holy Land, Promised Land, the land of Canaan, land of Israel. All those names have origin. But let's go back to the basics. In the book of Genesis, in the Holy Bible, in chapter 12, we see that this land belonged to the tribes of Canaan. Canaan was the grandson of Noah through his son Ham. And when Noah had an issue with his son Ham, he cursed Canaan. The tribes of Canaan lived there. It came a time when God wanted to ask Abraham to migrate from the Ur of the Chaldeans, from the far east, from east of Canaan in Mesopotamia to the promised land. Now, so the original name of that place was the land of Canaan, where the descendants of Canaan lived. Then the name evolved into the promised land, the land promised to Abraham and his descendants through the lineage of promise, through Isaac and then through his son Jacob. When you will see, for example, the Bible says in Genesis 12, the Lord had said to Abraham, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." He promises a lot of things there. And verse 4 says, "So Abraham left as the Lord had told him." And you continue to read, and you find that in verse 5, they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. So the land of promise was now taken by the people promised it. And the Lord gave it to Abraham and his descendants. You also see in Genesis 46, verse 1 to 7, that that same land is where Jacob and his children lived before they migrated to Egypt, owing to a very severe famine that came upon the land. And there were official ratifications or agreements between the delegation of Jacob and the kingdom of Egypt. Joseph by then was a prime minister, and Pharaoh was involved in welcoming Jacob to the land of Egypt. Afterwards is when you find that in Exodus chapter 3, verse 16 to 17, the Lord told Moses to go and deliver his people from Egypt and take them all the way to the promised land. So they returned after about 430 years of captivity. In the book of Exodus 3, where it says Moses was sent by God, we can see the other name of that land and the people who were designated to live in that land. Let me read. Exodus 3, verse 16 and 17. The Bible says, "Go, assemble the elders of Israel, and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me and said, I have watched over you and have seen what has been done to you in Egypt. And I have promised to bring you up out of your misery in Egypt into the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey." This was about 1500 BC. And the land was given to the Israelites as their inheritance through their leader Moses and Joshua, who actually came to effect that migration. Now, you have seen the emergence of two names, or three. The name of Canaan, the land of Canaan, now it became the land, the promised land, and now it became the land of Israel, the land of the Israelites, where Israel settled. And when the Israelites continued to increase, after that conquest led by Joshua and Caleb, they became the kingdom of Israel. So those are the major authentic names that we can see. We know there is another name that's used oftenly, the name of Zion. Of course, you can read from Psalms 125, verse 1 forward. It says, those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, it cannot be shaken, as Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains. So the Mount Zion is a place, and you have heard people come up with names like Zionism in reference to the people who are zealous for the independence and the freedom of the land. And many people don't have actually this background in its true sense. We know the United Kingdom of Israel under King David and King Solomon came to be divided. There was the Kingdom of Israel, the northern part with 10 tribes, then the Kingdom of Judah, involving Judah and Benjamin, 2 tribes. We know there was another history there of dispersal. We know there were conquests by other empires of the time. But it has predominantly been a land of Israel. So this story is about occupied Palestine, occupied territories, occupied West Bank, and all those names are most recent creations of people and Semitists who do not want the name of Israel to feature anywhere in the history of that contested land. Now, we are living in very perilous times. We know Joshua's conquest in the book of Numbers, chapter 34, verse 1 to 15. In the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 1 to 15. It also declares the borders of the land. And today, the Israel we know today is a very small piece of land. It doesn't really reflect the ancient boundaries that were given at that time, because there has been a lot of history, conflicts between Israel and her neighbors, issues of God wanting to chastise Israel on their relationship with him. God is interested in the way he wants them to trust in him. When they deviate, or probably they are misled by surrounding nations, they follow wicked paths of idol worship, God punishes them. But one line we see in history is that he always restores their remnant back. Now, the size measurements of the land are stated in Exodus 23, verse 31 to 33, and Deuteronomy 11:24. We can quickly read that. Exodus 23, verse 31. I will establish your borders from the Red Sea to the Sea of the Philistines. That, in other words, is the Mediterranean Sea. And from the desert to the river, which in other versions is the river Euphrates. I will hand over to you the people who live in the land, and you will drive them out before you. So you see this history, and the following verses there warning Israel against joining worship of idols that was prevalent among the neighboring communities. But the boundaries are well set out. In the book of Deuteronomy 11, it's another place where we find the borders of Israel mentioned. Deuteronomy 11, verse 24, which says, every place where you set your foot will be yours. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the Euphrates River to the western sea. No man will be able to stand against you. The Lord your God, as he promised you, will put the terror and fear of you on the whole land, wherever you go. So while we look at the boundaries, the authentic boundaries of the land of Israel, the promised land, the land promised to them, we see that there have been effects of people having phobia or hatred against the Jewish people, because they deem them as a civilization that came to occupy, without knowing that the Jews were ordered by divine authority to relocate from Egypt, where they had gone to seek refuge, and go and occupy those lands and remove the indigenous inhabitants of those lands back in the days of antiquity. That's what the modern civilizations of people don't want to hear. And because of elements of political correctness on the global scale, people don't want to address that subject as it is. Israel has been colonized by so many empires. All those days, from the days of the Assyrian Empire that moved a lot of people from their original homeland, the Babylonian Empire, those who were taken to Babylon were later restored. There was a remnant that came back. But even then, there has been, after Christ, there was this great dispersal that was started by General Titus of Rome in 70 AD, 70 Anno Domini. And since then, the Jews and the Roman Empire have never been fully back to their original estate. That's what the international community doesn't understand. That's why we say, if people don't understand the religio-political dynamics of the Middle East, then they should simply coil back and return to their base, without being quick to talk about matters that are under spiritual jurisdiction, which they cannot decipher or even relate with. The Jews were dispersed, persecuted, up to the time they came to now find their way back in the year 1948. They got independence. They started rebuilding their state, their nation state. The Jews are like green papyrus reeds that need to be supported and helped to sprout, because they have been always pressed down and troubled by these massive waves of floods of politics and hatred, anti-Semitism, and everything. I don't know if there is any other community in the world that has endured the scale of hatred, persecution, and mistreatment that has been meted against the Jewish people by humanity. Now, the city of the land, which is Jerusalem, has been contentious for a long time. In the book of Luke 21, verse 24, Jesus said, Jerusalem will be trembled to be occupied by people until the times of the Gentiles are determined. In Bible prophecy, the times of the Gentiles are from the day of the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian Empire, up to the second return of Christ, when these people try to weigh in on issues of Middle East, try to determine themselves towards Israel, trying to express themselves towards Jerusalem. We know today Jerusalem is a considered and contentious city where everybody claims ownership. But history shows that Jerusalem belongs to Israel ever since the days of conquest. And God has always revealed himself as the God of Israel, and that Jerusalem is his city and is a type of the real spiritual city that God is building for his saints, those who trust in him. So Jerusalem is exclusively an inheritance of Israel, and those who want to continue with that context may continue. Now, also in the book of Luke 19:41 to 44, you will see stories about Jerusalem, and Jesus saying people will come and tremble Jerusalem. That is expected to happen. The people of the land, in Exodus chapter 6, verse 2 to 8, shows that the people of that land are the Jews, the Israelites, the Hebrews. Now, the God of the land is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that is written in Deuteronomy 10, verse 14 to 17. So the God of Abraham, then Isaac, and then Jacob struck Israel. That is the God of that land. Solomon built a temple there. Where is it today? Where did it go? When was it demolished? What was happening? What were the prevailing circumstances? People don't want to read books. People are ignorant of history. Now the Savior of the land, Jesus Christ, was born in Bethlehem of Judah, raised in Nazareth, and he said he came to save the sheep, lost sheep of Israel, and after them, the Gentiles. And he treaded, he walked along the paths and avenues and highways of that place. By that time, were there contentions over who really owns that place and who has its rightful title deed, status of the land. The Israel of today is like about 8% of the real Israel that was ruled by King Solomon. Because that land has been by far decimated through encroachment. And when these people get dispersed all over the world, sometimes they come back, they find they have no place, they start building their settlements, and then they are branded as the occupying force. You hear of Jewish settlers who have come from afar to remove people from their own land. But the land was occupied by the people who evacuated them forcefully. And there were no laws or international conventions at that time which could protect the Jews. The future of the land. Zechariah 12 verse 1 to 9. Jerusalem will be restored. The prophet Zechariah spoke that the land will be restored to its rightful people in the end of times. The enemies of the Jews are also mentioned in Deuteronomy 12:10 and other places in the Bible. We see many attempts in Bible history and world history of people who have tried to annihilate, eliminate, or fatally destroy the Jewish community. They have tried, they have failed. You know about the story of Haman of the Persian Empire, who tried to destroy the Jews, but what happened is that it returned to him. Because the promise to Abraham and his descendants was that anyone who curses you, I will curse. Anyone who blesses you, I will bless. So whoever curses Israel is cursed. Whoever curses them is cursed. Whoever blesses them is blessed. And the United States of America has discovered this secret. That's why they are like the only one who comes to the rescue of the Israelites after Philippines in 1945 voted to support the creation of the Jewish state and swinged the vote in favor of Israel. Now, the surveying and mapping of the land of Israel is described in the book of Joshua 18 verse 1 to 10. It shows that the land was well mapped and surveyed by experts when it was being taken by its rightful owners. And today, if we send surveyors, let the United Nations send surveyors and follow the demarcations mentioned in the book of Joshua and see whether there has not been interferences to the detriment of the Jewish people by other forces who are in enmity with them. And some of these reasons are religious, others are genetic. People are disputing about who really belongs to Abraham, and those are issues of genealogy, blood relations. People also have issues with religion. The Jews have their way of believing in God, their neighbors have their way of believing in God, and the international community have their way. We know the major religions of the world are the Jewish religion, the Judaism, then there's Christianity, and then there's Islam, and there are others. But that is the bone of contention. And the world cannot solve the issue of religion on its own. God will determine that one. But at the moment, we have been given instruction as to how we should live together in good neighborhood. As everyone wants to depict what God has taught him, we will come to know which God teaches love and which one teaches otherwise. Which one teaches violence and which one teaches peace. We will come to know as we go by looking at how people behave. Israel has become a democratic state, which is not violent, it's not aggressive towards anybody. Israel actually is one of the most loving countries we know. The Jews have no expansionist motives. They have no ambitions to form an empire. They just want to be and to be let be. They just want to exist. And that's what some neighbors and enemies don't want to hear and don't want to see. That's why they have formed all their proxies, their alliances against the Jews. It is written in the book of Psalms 83. Psalm 83, it says, O God, do not keep silent. Be not quiet, O God, be not still. See how your enemies are a star, how your foes rear their heads. With cunning they conspire against your people. They plot against those you cherish. Come, they say, let us destroy them as a nation, that the name of Israel be remembered no more. With one mind, they plot together, they form an alliance against you. Now that's the motive of these nations. And when you continue reading, you see which nations they are. They are mentioned by name, and they are symbols of others who have not been mentioned. But the alliance has been mentioned. Look at what we call the Transjordan. That created the modern boundary. The River Jordan was taken as the boundary, was marked as the boundary between Israel eastwards by the British colonel who was an army officer and airman, Thomas Edward Lawrence in 1921. And the Transjordan separated the modern west of Jordan, which was Israel, and the east, which formed Jordan. And the Hashemite dynasty ruled there, and they became somehow, through history, the modern country called Jordan. The history is long. I don't want to get there for now. But once again, after some time, you continue reading, and reliable sources show that later they annexed what they call now the West Bank, and they want to reserve it as a place for other people other than the Jews. It was annexed, and it's quite unfortunate, because that's not how the original demarcations of the land looked like. And when the Jews tried to expand that way, there are issues. So the British Empire could have probably also declined because of its interference with the interests of the state of Israel. We have issues like South Africa. South Africa, the Republic of South Africa, from Africa, the far end, the southmost tip of Africa, taking a case against Israel to the International Criminal Court, accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza, or probably ethnocide. And we ask ourselves, who sent South Africa to do that? Who sent them to express themselves in that way? And what is their interest? For once, we are worried. Who does South Africa represent? South Africa does not represent Africa. It has not been sent by sub-Saharan Africa. They are doing that on their own, and they are on their own. And whatever the consequences they will suffer, let them be on their own. The prophet Zephaniah chapter 2 verse 11 warns of the consequences of such kind of behavior. I wonder, do we have pastors in South Africa who can call their government to order and speak truth to power? Do we have serious Christian clergy in South Africa who knows these facts and can advise their government on their foreign policy towards Israel? Do they know the risk they are taking by keeping quiet? Do they know where they are placing their country in collision course with God, the protector of Israel? Do they know that? Why is the pastoral desk of South Africa silent when these things are happening? What is their government after by branding the Jewish nation as a champion of genocide? Where was South Africa on October 7 when the Jews themselves were attacked? People were raped, they were abducted, hostages were taken. Up to this day, people are still pushing and pulling to find a solution. Now, a warning is on South Africa. Do whatever you are doing and reap the consequences on your own, because heaven will not rest until you get retribution from above. The UN mostly votes in bias against Israel. When you look at the resolutions, they don't really want to see justice. They just want to see the Jews behave like they have no rights to ask for anything, and like everybody else is right. And in a way, they may become protectors of religious terrorism and confusion that compounds the Middle East from all corners. The UN should be a body that everybody can trust in. And the Bible has warned about forming alliances that are contrary to the interests, especially of the nation of Israel. Because it's like pulling the trigger and declaring a war with God. The two-state solution issue is just a mere political correctness talk. It has never existed. And this two-state solution can help if there can be found a way whereby it doesn't have to happen by further decimating the already meager, measly, small, minute, little territory of Israel. If the Arab world means well to the Palestinian people, they can even find a place also to occupy them. And even they can negotiate with Israel in a way that is not aggressive. A gentleman talk. And people can find how they can coexist. Because in history, those people have coexisted. The Palestinian territory has existed throughout history. And we know that. We know the conflicts between the Jews and the Philistines and all that. But for now, we just want to say that every human has a right to life, right of existence, and right to shelter. But while that happens, it doesn't have to be at the expense of the right of the other person, the other party. And now there should be found a sober, non-antisemitistic solution to this problem. Issues of Gaza are long, and they are a long story. You can read about them from the book of Judges, how Samson confronted those people and how they had conflicts. Amos chapter 1 verse 6 to 8 and Zephaniah 2 verse 4 to 7 says Gaza would be destroyed, and as Amos prophesied, it was destroyed by Alexander the Great, not Israel. Today there are issues, and those issues will be solved by God, not man. Now, as we wind up, let me be clear that in Psalm 122, verse 6 to 8, we are asked to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. In the book of Psalms, 122, verse 6 and 7 says, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you be secure. May there be peace within your walls and security within your citadels." The Bible requires us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem city. It doesn't ask us to carry guns, bullets, bombs, and hatred. Even those who are claiming some rights in Jerusalem aren't really sure and are not based on good foundation about what they are doing, because it's a mere political jostling, mere political competition. But the spiritual truth is that God asks us to pray to Him to restore the peace of Jerusalem. It will not even be brought by the international community or somebody. True peace will never materialize unless we turn our hearts to God as a people. Now, God has promised that He will finally restore Israel, and that is written in the book of Jeremiah 23, verse 3 to 4. Jeremiah 23, verse 3 to 4. God says, "I myself will gather the remnant of my flock out of all the countries where I have driven them, and will bring them back to their pasture, where they will be fruitful and increase in number. I will place shepherds over them who will tend them, and they will no longer be afraid or terrified, nor will any be missing, declares the Lord." That is Prophet Jeremiah, whose prediction is corroborated by another prophet, Micah, who says in chapter 2, verse 12, "I will surely gather all of you, O Jacob." And for those who need to know, let me put to you into brackets that Jacob was the early name of the patriarch, who was given another name by the angel and was called Israel. When we say Israel, we also refer to Jacob, because it means the man and his descendants, the 12 sons and their descendants. "I will surely gather all of you, O Jacob. I will surely bring together the remnant of Israel. I will bring them together like sheep in a pen, and like a flock in its pasture. The place will throng with people." Now, let me conclude by saying that history has shown that the Jews has always survived any attempts by any world powers to exterminate them. Ever since the days of their slavery in Egypt, to the days of the British Empire in the 1900s, throughout the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Grecian Empire, the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, everyone empire, up to now, the Jews are still surviving. They have been often decimated by wars, persecution, and evacuations, and anti-Semitism. But they have always had a remnant that had out-survived and outlived their enemies. So, anyone who attempts to start a war or an annihilation scam against the Jews, it will always collapse and crash with thunderous shame. God has promised to take care of them. Nobody will succeed, be it international court, be it international alliance, be it South Africa, whoever it is. The Jews have never committed genocide. They have always been victims of genocide, victims of ethnocide, victims of conquest and dispersal. History says it all. You cannot erase, you cannot edit history. There is a prophetic herald or warning against all nations of the world that have involved themselves in the persecution, dispersion, dividing of Israel. And those who are masters of determining where the borders should lie and who should grab what, all people who have been involved in one way or another, the prophet Joel has warned that those who cut such deals, maybe to win a favor, maybe to win a place or get a good name or form a strong alliance or look good or be politically correct, those people will be judged according to this word. Prophet Joel chapter 3 verse 1 to 3. In those days and at that time, when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And for those who need to know, the name Jehoshaphat was symbolic. He was a king of Judah, but the name means the Lord judges. So God will bring them down to the valley of the Lord's judgment. So Israel will be restored. And let's love everybody. Let's love the Israelites. Let's love the Palestinians. Let us show them God's love. Let us find a way that is not in conflict with reality and with truth, while we seek for solution over the conflicts in Middle East. And let's reserve what needs divine intervention to the divine. We are not going to replace the divine in solving the issues of the Middle East. God above all, that is everything. Let's bless God above all. Thank you.